Welcome to another episode of the Standout. Man, I'm super excited about this episode because this is somebody that I got my very first start with. When I started in real estate, when I first had my mindset shift, this guest was the guy who was next to me. He taught me literally like 97% of what I know. And he was somebody that I could look up to that was taking action, that was doing what was right, and he was like the way that he handled business. He's somebody is always moving, and that was something that I aspired to do. And he was somebody that I could watch do that. This is actually my very first military guest. As you know, I was military for almost a decade, and it's always a great time to get with somebody who also has that military mindset and transition so many of those skills over from military to the civilian world where we are crushing it in business and entrepreneurship. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the screen, Michael Glaspie.
What is up, man? First off, I want to say that's probably one of the most humbling introductions I've ever gotten, man. I really appreciate that. But I mean, for you to even mention that I may have pointed you in the right direction is great, especially seeing everything that you're doing for yourself now, man. So I really appreciate that. But I'm happy to be here, brother. I see you crushing it out here. I'm ready to just chat and catch up, let alone, add any type of value I can to your audience.
Absolutely, man. When somebody has a life shift where you either go in this direction or this direction, and you choose directions that's going to rapidly make your life better, those are the moments where somebody like you is so key. Like legit, you were somebody that I could call, text anytime, and no matter how busy you were, you would always get back to me. And you would lead me, you would take time. Hey, I'm going to teach you this. Hey, let's whiteboard this. Hey, if you have any
Right.
questions, let me know. Hey, if you need help with that client. And dude, that was impactful because I don't usually talk about this, but I got out of the military about 6 months earlier than I thought I was going to.
Mhm.
And I was capped. You get paid every 2 weeks when you're in the military. You know that
Yep.
it's coming. And when I got out of the military, I had two rental properties, and it was not enough for my expenses to be covered. So I had my
Right.
real
Right.
estate license, and it was back against the wall grind mode, like 18-hour days, just like I was in Afghanistan. And dude, having you there was, I mean, a saving grace, legit, because you're so knowledgeable. You take so much time to learn and really go deep. Like every teaching session we had was so in depth. It was just, man. And I'm sure I'm just one person that you blessed. I'm sure that there's many more.
I appreciate that, man. I definitely understand like the struggle. Most of us as military coming out of the military is hard. It's hard. But when I came out of the military, the company was already running. We were already running. I had several rental properties. I was making more money outside of the military than I was in the military, and yet I still had the toughest time during the transition. I mean, I
Mm.
got into a dark place, and a lot of people was like, "Oh, you got it already figured out." So I basically say that to simply say, transition out of the military for everybody who is listening or people who don't know. If you know somebody transition out of the military, it is important that somebody's there for them, regardless of how happy they look or whatever the case is. So I'm happy that I was able to be there for you, man, for sure.
And before we get into your story, one thing that I've recognized about you, and one thing that you've mentioned that you're really good at is teaching. Something that you love is teaching.
Yeah.
Where do you think that you developed that love of teaching?
That's a good question, man. You know, honestly, because I remember as a kid, I grew up in a very, not to be what was me, but we didn't have a lot of money. There was times where our utilities weren't working, but we were on food stamps. We got evicted out of multiple homes. It was a single mother household. We wore hand-me-downs or went to Goodwill, whatever. And so, but that was normal because when you grow up in that environment, you don't know that something's wrong. But because we were so closed off, my mama was always out the house working just to simply feed us. We were closed off to the world. So when I would go to like school or watch the documentary on dinosaurs, I was just so enamored by all of the mysteries of the universe, right? And I mean, to the point where I'd be like, let's go to the library, and I'd get all the books on dinosaurs. And then I'd be the one to be like, oh, the Stegosaurus is that, you know what I mean? And I'd get all the books on the
Mm.
universe and all the books about this. And I think just learning all of that was so fun and exciting for me that I want to share that excitement of discovery with other people, and
Mm.
because I mean, even now to this day, I tell my fiance all the time, I was like, look, if I can get paid to simply just go and learn all the time, that would be the dream job. And I'm slowly trying to morph my life into that. But I mean, that would be the dream job. But I think maybe that's where it came from.
Wow. The curiosity, the childlike curiosity that
Yeah.
you displayed when you were a kid, literally, you are that same person today. You
Yeah.
have that childlike curiosity. And man, I think that's one of the things that makes you so unique in what you do, especially as you move into what you're doing now as a fractional CFO. We started diving into it a little bit. You said that you grew up, you didn't have a lot, and it sounds like you grew up with a single mother.
Yeah. And so that's how it started off. Now, not to say that my father just wasn't in the picture. There was some other, family dynamics there or whatever. But around 14 or so, I actually moved with my father. And he had a
Okay.
little bit different situation. He was making a little bit more money. He also had his wife at the time, so I had a stepmom, and so that living situation became a lot better as we kind of grew on. But like I said, what you grow up in is your normal. That is your baseline. So I mean, it
Yeah.
even got to the point where I didn't have my first actual steak until I was like 14 or 15, and I was when my stepmom took me out to get the steak, I was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure we can do this?" And she was like, "Boy, eat the steak." Steak. To me, I was like, "You got to be rich to do that, right?" So that's a lot about of how my understanding around money and exposure to the finer things in life was really kind of sheltered in the beginning. Then it kind of got
Mm.
exposed as it went on. But I know you didn't ask me that question particularly,
That's
but that's the
great.
reason
That's
I share
great.
that portion of the story for sure.
And that's huge because I always tell the story of the
Mm,
dad who is an alcoholic and he has two sons. And when you ask one of the sons, well, why don't you drink? He said, well, my dad was an alcoholic. And you ask the other son, why do you drink?
yeah,
It's because my dad was an alcoholic. So there's two realms. You either know about, like you were saying, you were sheltered from the world. But
right.
instead of saying, well, I don't know anything about that and I don't care to know, I'm going to stay here in my comfort zone. No, I'm curious. Oh, there's more out there. Let me go and grab that. And you were a kid. Now,
Right.
all the people listening to this right now, they're adults. So we can take that from you and we can apply it to our lives instead of saying closed off to certain things. Hey, there's something out there that I didn't know about. And most people listening,
100%.
they're already business people. But what I'm talking about is our
Yep.
relationship with our spouse, our significant other, our relationship with money, our relationship with ourselves. There's more out there for us to explore. So don't stay closed off, but rather dive into something because I say it that way because it's almost a double-edged sword with how much opportunity there is, how much
Oh, for sure.
information there is, right? Because you can open up your phone, your laptop, your TV. There's so much exposure now. So that's actually, I know we're talking about your story, but now I want to know
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
answer to this. Like, because you're so curious, and I remember just by having proximity to you, you had so many irons in the fire. And it
Yeah, yeah,
seems
yeah.
like recently you've dialed that back a little bit.
Yep.
So talk to me about how you stay focused being someone who's so curious about all the things that are happening around you.
Now that is a good question because ultimately, at the end of the day, what it really boiled down to was maturing. I actually had to mature a little bit.
Mm.
I'm a firm believer that we all have different chapters in life, and we mature differently during those different chapters. So, me being in the military, I joined the military young. I joined just when I turned 19, and I did some great things that I'm very proud of that a lot of people don't know about. But I mean, I was right hand man to the ambassador for all special operations in certain countries. I was doing things, where I was conducting exercises or mission sets when I was in charge of 50 people or whatever the case is. And when you think about that, like that takes a high degree of maturity, but that's a sense of professional maturity. And then you
Mm.
may remember this when you started coming around, we were running the company. You remember I was always on it, but I was very to the point, put it that
Mm.
way. So if you're wasting money, I don't want to hear it. And that took a lot of personal maturity because I had to realize that we're all people. I can't talk to people like I do in the military, right?
Mm.
And then when it comes to the irons in the fire, I want to do everything. I want to be the guy that says, I live my life to the fullest and I've experienced and I've done everything. I've ate everything. I've seen all the cultures I wanted to see. Now, and da 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 da. But I realized that you can't do it all at once and you can't be great at all of it. So, what
Mm,
it really took for me to realize was, I don't have to be the guy that discovers it, perfects it, and then implement it successfully and has the reward at the end.
mm,
I just need to go to the person who's already done it and get what I can from it, share that experience with them. After that, once I kind of realized that, and that was actually during one of the darkest points of my time when I was transitioning out of the military. That's when I kind of, realized it. Well, actually, it took me a couple years after that. But anyway, that's when I realized it. And so what that kind of manifested into was, you know what? I'm not working out anymore. I'm gonna go get a personal trainer. He's going to hold me responsible. And the few exercises I do are going to be very impactful for me specifically. I'm gonna go get a communications coach. They're gonna teach me how
mm.
to speak better with my spouse, with my family, with myself, with the audience. Great. Next, I'm gonna get somebody who helps me design speeches. Why? Speeches sell. Speeches motivate. Speeches do all these things that I need to be a better manager and a better leader and all these other things. And so I really started designing my life around other people's expertise that allowed me to step back, take my irons out of the fire, and just focus on the things that I really want to dive into and really want to become good at. That's where I'm going to spend my time and energy.
Wow. I think you and I we're pretty similar in this space. It's like there's a lot of things out there that I love to do. And if I did them, I would probably have some initial success because jack of all trades, master of none. It's like
Right.
we can just dive in and it's exciting and you speak very well already. So it's kind of like you can weasel, not necessarily saying about
Right.
you, but you can get, I personally have weaseled my way
Right.
into
Right.
rooms I had no business being in because of communication, right? You can,
Right.
if you can
Right.
say it well. But some of the things that were big there that you just said, professional maturity and personal maturity. In my mind, how you encapsulate those was relationships, key
Yeah.
relationships, because totally resonate with that. It's like I got to be the one who found it. It's mine. It's my baby. I did it, and
Yep.
now I'm the only one doing it.
Yep.
And in reality, you'd have to devote years, decades to that. I'm already on to the next thing by the time I've even gotten to a
Yep.
point where I could make something of this. So, what you've done, connecting your gifts and talents to other people's gifts, talents, and abilities, and saying, hey, we can do this together.
Exactly. Exactly. Because even Malcolm Gladwell says in order to master or reach level of mastery, you need 10,000 hours. And if you've done the math before, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's over 5 years of consistent doing and doing and doing. As entrepreneurs, honestly, the only thing that we get in that experience is running a business. But typically, we're not always doing the sales. We're not always doing the finance. We're not always doing the management. We're not always
Right.
doing the whatever. So even when you think about it at that capacity, it's like in order for you to really be good at something, which you don't want to do as an
Right.
entrepreneur, you want other people to do it for you. You
Absolutely.
have to. And that's just kind of relating it to business. But I'm a firm believer now, obviously, throughout within this chapter of my life, that I think that applies to all areas of life. Period.
You got to delegate to elevate. And
Yep.
if I'm doing everything in my business, that's where I'll be. Getting burnt out. I met the coffee shop that's right behind me. I met with a business owner yesterday because I'm potentially buying a pressure washing business. As the trades, these types of jobs, people don't want to do them anymore. And the people
Right.
who own them, they're people who have owned them for 20, 30 years, and they're doing exactly this. They are the accountant. They're the one bidding the
Yep.
job. They're doing all the clerical work. They're literally
Yeah.
running every piece of their business and they hire on some part-time, maybe some full-time folks. After 20 years, I'm going to pop smoke, sell my business at a discount because it's cruising along, but I could probably
Right.
just sell it and move on. I asked the guy, I literally said, if you just hired somebody to do the administrative work, would you still be interested in selling your business? And he sat back and he said, well, I've never even thought of that. It didn't even cross his mind
Right.
to hire somebody to do the clerical work. So That's why having access to conversations like this and relationships like this, we can start to get to a place where we're no longer doing
Yep.
everything. And it is a mental exercise to say, I have to trust somebody to
Oh,
do
for sure.
this
For sure.
part.
The whole portion of like trusting others, that's one of the biggest, there's an interview that's going around from an ex-CIA operative. And he says one of the critical things that the CIA looks for when they're recruiting their agents, their handlers, their human intelligence handlers, is some sort of trauma that they experienced as a child makes them reach or achieve more success or
Mm,
more in tune with achieving success. They have a chip on their shoulder. And that's the type of people that the CIA recruits. And so when you think about that and you look at all these entrepreneurs that are doing really well, most of them on our operating level, I'm not talking about the people who inherited their billions and millions from their family. I'm talking about the first generations. A lot of us have a chips on our shoulder, just period, for whatever reason it
right.
is. And when you think about that, if you have a chip on your shoulder, are you going to naturally trust other people? Probably not. And so one of the things that when we look and because we stand on the shoulder of giants, we look at what people have done before us. When you look what everybody else has done and you see that they act in order for them to scale, the number one thing that they leverage is human talent,
Mm,
right? We see that, but we fight it because it's so against our natural grain because we don't trust people. So to your point, with everything that becomes like it's a hurdle, what do they say? Like if you don't feel uncomfortable, you're not growing. So when we start to reach that hurdle, we just got to figure out, for example, I do this all the time. Hey, I have to make this investment. How do I make an educated yes? Because I don't know how it's
mm.
going to turn out, but I want it to be as educated as possible. We got to do the same thing with people. You know how we screen them and all that good stuff. There's no excuse. Figure out what you need to know, screen it to make a comfortable, educated guess, and then you got to go for it. And then you learn, and then you got to
Boom.
adapt and just go.
Calculated risk. And it's a part of design. You're going to run into things that you thought that you could build, but now you're not able to
Right.
because you're just going through the process. You're taking steps forward and figuring out things that you didn't know. It's the unknown unknowns
Mhm.
about just moving forward. But I've been seeing that a lot on social media and just having in conversations, which is if you're unwilling to take a calculated risk, you'll never move forward in
You
any
don't
area.
belong in business. You don't belong in business. If you're not going to take any risks, you don't belong in
Absolutely.
business.
You
Yeah.
don't belong in business. You might not belong in a relationship because everything's risky. Jim Rohn
Yeah.
says that everything's risky. You've got to take the risk because wait till they hand you the bill for not taking it. It's always worse because it weighs on your mind and I believe it weighs on your spirit. We were just talking about Keith Cunningham. He's a thought leader. He's someone who teaches other people how to evaluate, buy, and exit businesses. And he was talking about if he were in a scenario, would he have to run into the best version of himself? The biggest regret would be running into the best version of yourself and not recognizing who that person is. But the best thing that you could do for yourself is running into the best version of yourself and saying, I know who you are because I am you. How much how much respect would we have for ourselves? And that was how we thought, I know you because I am you. And it all comes down to calculated risk, which is ultimately decisions.
100%.
Just to give everybody context, if you are building a fractional CFO business, you're offering fractional CFO services. So, from my understanding, and I want you to dive a little bit more into it, from my understanding, you are highlighting where people are falling short in terms of their overall picture of their accounting, their income, their expenses, and just the overall health of their business in the financial space. But if
Yeah.
you could just give me the high level of what that fractional CFO service is.
Oftentimes people go to a CPA and they expect that CPA to tell them what they should do to improve their income or if they can afford to hire somebody or how much they should spend on marketing. And that's not a CPA's job.
Hmm.
A CPA focuses on something that's called tax accounting. With tax accounting, that is a reporting measure to the IRS. And basically what we're saying is, hey, you've already performed. Let me just look and report what you've already done. What my company does is we're a managerial accounting firm, meaning we're going to go inside of your company and we're going to be able to answer all of those questions. When can you afford to hire? What positions do you need to hire? Is your marketing actually giving you the return that you need? What can we do to improve the marketing? All of those things that people typically take for granted, or they might overgeneralize because they try to cover it all up by just doing more sales, right? And so we go in and we operate as a CFO, right? Chief Financial Officer, where we basically sit down and we actually take control of their managerial department. So we interact with their finance team members, whether that's their CPA, their bookkeeper, their team that's on the ground, and we help them revamp that entire process so they can see more of their profits and ultimately just keep more of the money that they make.
And I'm sure as you're building this, you're really finding out how big a need
A
there is for
need.
this service.
It started off with just a passion of curiosity. Like I've done this with my own companies, and I've helped plenty of other people do it without the moniker of being their CFO. And as I really started to open this up, I had an opportunity to be a CFO for a small private equity firm. That went well. And then I said, you know what, let me just do this on my own. But to your point, this is a gap. As I meet people, some of my clients are doing 20 million in revenue, and you're seeing how unstable their financial processes are. I had to be careful. You saw that. I tried to be careful with the word choice there. How unstable their financial processes are. And it's like, you know what? Just having somebody come in who just understands it, right? Because again, they're running the business here. But remember, the CPA doesn't get into your business.
Right.
So they think they have something good because their CPA is like, oh, do this for taxes, do that. And then you look at how they're running the business, you're like, wow. So just having somebody who can go in there who understands it and can clean it up and improve your profit margin by a couple percentages, and all of a sudden you're doing the same work, but you're keeping more money. That's what it's all about.
Boom.
We talked about this before, how I sold most of my portfolio, because at the beginning, remember how hungry I was? I said, I'm getting 100 doors in 3 years. And in less than 3 years, oh no, excuse me, I said 100 doors in 10 years. But in less than 3 years, I got 100 doors. And really what it boiled down to was oftentimes we think we have to scale to reach a certain type of quality of life or income level. But, you know, hey, if I make $1 million and I spend 900,000 and I only walk away with 100,000, that's cool. But if I make $1 million and I only spend 500,000, I didn't do any more work to get the same money. I just done something smarter with how I managed.
It's not about how much money you make.
It's about how much you keep.
Yes.
Yep.
And no, there's in the world of social media, in the world of more is always better.
Yeah.
That's where we get so stuck, man.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I was stuck there for years, 2 years, over 2 years. I was stuck there because I need more. I have to have more. Why? Because other people have more. Why? Because the people around me have more. Why? Because when people see me, I want them to see that I have more.
Right.
That led me to a very, very bad place.
Of course.
Because I'm constantly comparing to somebody else where
Comparison is the thief of joy.
I had no joy.
Yeah.
I thought it was, oh yeah, dude, I'm doing this, I'm working on this, and I got a couple.
Nope.
Idiot. You know what I mean? Like
we all do it though. We all do it because we don't understand. Think about this, and this is unfortunate too. But so people who can't see me, although I am light skinned, my background is African American. And one of the things that we see often in our community is that when we get exposed to a little bit of money, we don't understand how to utilize it. So what do? We buy things that are flashy so we can give off the appearance that we have money. And it doesn't just, hit our community. It hits a lot of people. But if you really think about it, when we look at social media and we look at the world, that's what they're telling us to do. We live in a capitalistic society. Of course, they're telling us you need the product, you need the this, you need the that. So what is it, when we start trying to do things to better ourselves, what's our natural inclination? Show out of it. Hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing good now. Look, I got these 5 companies. How much you making? No. I said I got 5 companies. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Don't worry about that. You asking too many questions now. I got 5 companies. And in reality, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't shake out. So, I agree with you 100%. This goes back to maturing. It goes
Mm.
back to me realizing that I don't need 100 doors when I can literally have 20 and make the same amount of more profit as a percentage. I'm making more profit off of 20 than I did with 100. Then it makes sense.
Scale to be better before we scale to be bigger.
Here's the key to managerial accounting for every business owner out there: efficiency. The more efficient you are, the more profitable you will be. And I am a firm believer, and many of my clients are too. Well, now they are specifically, but you'll see that when you just work on becoming efficient at something, you're going to see your profit margin soar. Here's a good example. If it takes you typically 80 days to do a flip project, for all my real estate investors out there, that's 6 months out of the year. Here's the thing: we don't change anything. We just change the processes that speed that timeline up from 6 months to 4 months. Now, what we've done, if we have any borrowed capital, we paid less on interest, and we can now do 3 of those projects throughout the year instead of only 2. We're more profitable.
Mm.
And that's just an overgeneralization there, but quite literally just working on efficiency. And
Right.
even if you listen to some of the greats now, like when I was talking about greats on social media really being present now, Alex Hermosi,
Yeah.
he says one of the best business models is rip somebody off and do it faster.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's true. That's what we're all doing
That's
at the
right.
high level.
That's right. And I mean, when I was in the service, I was an intelligence analyst.
Yep.
And I was an all source analyst. So that means I was fairly general. You got your SIGINT, your signals intelligence analyst. You have your imagery intelligence analyst. That's looking at pictures. The signals are listening to beeps and squeaks. They're doing all kinds
Yeah.
of, they're out there doing stuff. And you had your linguists analysts who were analyzing the languages that I couldn't speak. I take all their stuff, pull their name off of it, put my name on it, and just put it together. And I tell the commander, and I looked like a rock star. Okay, okay, you painting the picture for me. Whereas they did all the work. That's where we got to get. And that can also come instead of ripping people up, we can also build relationships through that. We can
Right,
allow
right, right.
the rising tide that rises all boats. Instead of having that clouded judgment that we talked about having more, we're just doing things better. We're doing them faster, and we're doing
Yeah.
them, like you said, with efficiency. And
100%.
we keep blowing past it because we both get excited about stuff. A lot of what you're saying, it seems like you got a ton of that structure through your time as a Green Beret.
So, I've shared this story kind of more recently. It's like I've come to the realization that what the military does very well, it teaches us all to be resourceful.
Mm,
Every time, a lot of people think, oh, especially when you're in special operations like a Green Beret, you're in special forces and all this, they're like, oh man, you guys got the best equipment ever. You guys got laser guns and jetpacks. And it's like, well, in reality, although, we have some pretty decent equipment, we oftentimes have less quality equipment than a lot of the other special operation forces and
mm,
even sometimes than other units. And what we're trained to do is be resourceful, not count solely on the resources. Whatever we have in our environment, we have to make it work. And this goes back to, my childhood curiosity now being kind of molded and professionally developed by forcing myself to be creative. And now we put those things together. It's like, oh, hold on. I know how to do research. I know how to study a packet for a target or whatever the case is. Great. I love learning about new things. Let me go to this guy. This guy does signal over here. Let me go to the medic over here. Let me go to the guy who he does nothing but mountain climbing. Well, can we implement this? Can we do this? We got a donkey trainer over here. All right, let me go to this guy. And then all of a sudden you can put all these things together. And specifically, we have to plan our missions as Green Berets. The way it works is a mission set comes down. We all get the mission set. The team leadership go and basically compete for which mission they get. And then
mm.
we as the team, we have to kind of pitch why we think we're a good fit. And, whoever wins gets the mission set. So, I mean, you got to imagine you have all of these really high energy alpha males who are creative and trained to be, really resourceful, battling each other on how creative yet practical can we be. So now when you take this and you apply it to the real world in business and finance, to me, it feels like now I have an unlimited ability to provide value because there's no capping creativity.
Mm,
There's no capping resourcefulness. So as that kind of matured, the first love of mine became real estate. And you're fully aware of that when we built the team. But the reason why was because although I was experimenting with different things, I mean, I did Amway back in the day. I was selling, this and that. I was trying to sell a little bit of everything. I felt capped on my potential to be creative. But real estate allowed me to do anything that I could imagine. If I imagined, hey, look, I don't really want to own the real estate, but I'd love to help this dude maybe get over here. I could talk to this dude. It's like, oh, that's called wholesale? Oh, hell. Okay. Hey, I really want to own this real estate, but I'd rather just keep the mortgage in the original owner's name. But I don't know. Well, hold on. That's called a subject to? Oh my
mm.
God. You know what I mean? Like anything that you can fathom, you could do in real estate. So that really kicked it off. And then as it kind of matured and continued to develop, I've always been I'm going to call it a business freak because I've loved studying it, is what I mean by that. So now we take real estate and then you learn to treat it like a business. And then you realize that finances is the thing that really drives the business. People will say sales, that's interchangeable there, but it's a constant wormhole that I get to continue to explore in a good way, in a good way. But it just kind of puts all of those magical pieces together.
There's a lot of people that are still working the 9 to 5. That was the nine to
Yeah,
five job. For
yeah,
me, the military was the 9 to 5 job. You had so many skills that you learned while you were there that just transition them to a new thing. Here was the
exactly.
new thing, and I have all the everything I need. I already have. I just need to learn more about that specific thing. The ability's already
100%.
there. I just need the knowledge to go and act it out. And once you do that, you
100%.
surround yourself with the right people, like you were talking about, those relationships that are going to force you into professional and personal maturity because there's without relationships, there's no need to mature. Because if it's just
True.
you can piss
Do
yourself
whatever
off.
you want.
You
Yeah,
can
exactly.
go do it, man. Nobody's gonna, you have nobody to hold you accountable. But with
Right.
that accountability, you have to design better. You have to design here better. And sounds like you're doing that, man, because from real estate, understanding, okay, I have all the ability. I have the new thing that I'm learning, and you did it well. And you were growing fast and through personal and professional maturity, continued to realize, hey, I don't need to have 100 doors. I can have 20
Right.
and make more. Okay, now where you're at, having the business acumen that you have, putting the 10,000 hours in where you now have your fractional CFO business, it seems like you transitioned those skills and you're sharpening them even more because within real estate, now you're niching down even further
Exactly.
to the fractional CFO. From when you started the fractional CFO to where you are now, what would you say is the most impactful lesson learned where you got into the details of
Yeah.
somebody's business and you said, this, I'm going to turn this knob here and man, it's going to change some things for your business?
The one thing that I see 90% of businesses doing incorrectly is their bookkeeping. All bookkeeping is you're doing all these transactions and somebody is just making sure that they all line up and they're all recorded properly. So you go spend money on gas, you go spend money on food, you go spend money on a house, you spend money at Lowe's or Home Depot, you spend money on this. Hey, just make sure it's recorded correctly and it's categorized correctly. That's it. That's what bookkeeping is. But oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we wear all the hats. And so they go in there and they start trying to do it and put things here. Here's the thing, guys. Bookkeeping, real bookkeeping is actually an accounting practice.
Mm.
If you don't know accounting, you're probably doing it wrong. All right. And every time, I promise you, about 99% of the time, every books that I open up, people will feel like, oh, my books are good. And I'm not saying that to like talk down on them or degrade them or anything, but it's the ignorance, it's the naivety that comes with if you don't know accounting, you don't know bookkeeping. My
Mm.
point to that is saying by getting the books cleaned up and they're accurate, it exposes most of the issues that you have in the business. I'm going to give you an example. When we look at a profit and loss statement, AKA an income statement, there's two main items that we're going to look at. People are going to typically look at total revenue, and that's cool. We're going to look at your gross profit margin and your net profit margin. Basically, what that means is gross profit says, how efficient am I at building this product to be sold? So gross profit says, hey, I purchased the property, I've renovated the property, now it's ready to sell. So how good was I at doing that process? The net profit margin is after I sell this product, how efficient am I at operating my company? And so people don't really understand. It's two different phases. And a lot of people only look at total revenue, or sometimes they only look at net profit, but we want the percentages, we want the margins to track our efficiency. And if you don't have those numbers, I can't tell you if it's before you produce the product or if it's after and you just can't manage your money. Can't tell you that. And that's just a simple explanation, but that goes to show how important or how clear the financial statements can just outline a problem set for you. So it's honestly, the bookkeeping is one of the things that we always have to address for every client. And that I would recommend every single body who's starting a business is just get bookkeeping done correctly.
Boom. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, I love hearing you say that because one of my partners that I have down in North Carolina, he started a bookkeeping business. Thank God. Because everything that you're saying, that's me. And I think that's a lot of people too.
Thing is, when you turn in your, so here's the thing, like you got your bookkeeping, you turn your financial statement into the CPA, and guess what? The CPA just records it and reports it to the IRS. It's not his job. Not his job to make sure your books are clean, unless you're paying him for bookkeeping. But if you're not paying him for bookkeeping, it's not his job. And people don't understand that. That's why you need a good bookkeeper or a managerial accountant to come in there and make sure it's all tight. So when we do report it to the CPA or tax accountant, now he handles that.
Because what you're saying is it exposes the problems. When you have somebody who knows what they're doing, and when you expose problems in any area of life, once you can see them, it provides clarity. Okay, now I know how to attack this particular thing. So once the bookkeeping is now pulling out all the things that I'm doing horrible, now I can say, okay, this week I'm going to attack this here with my boy Mike, because he's my fractional CFO and he's already seen it. He's already knows, he's working on it. And even if that's a 2% increase in the business overall.
Exactly.
And then the next week you work on another thing and it's a 1%. Next week it's a 3%. But overall, that's 6% increase in your business just by turning a dial. The 2 millimeter shift could be all that you need to get you going in the right direction. You know, a plane that takes off from LAX on the west coast of the United States, if its nose is just a few centimeters off, it could either land in Miami, Florida, or it could land in New York City because of the trajectory. So how long you don't have somebody doing your bookkeeping, that you could unravel a whole whirlwind of craziness. But the people who never do it are the people that I meet here. They're going to sell their business because they're still doing the work.
Exactly. And they never got it done correctly. When the books are clear, what it allows you to do is get hyper focused on solving the cause of the problem, not the symptom. So I'm just going to ask you a question, Trev. If typically, what do you hear? If somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I have a cash flow problem, what do they get told that they need to go out and do? If you need more cash, what do you need to do?
You need to go make more money.
Go and make more money. You need to go sell more. And that's typically it's a capitalistic society. Sales reps are selling you on their sales program. Nothing against it, but that's what's happening. And so what do entrepreneurs think? Man, I'm getting tight on money. I probably got to fire somebody because I'm paying them too much, or I need to hire somebody or spend more on marketing, and I need to go and sell more. But when you have clear finances and you realize that the cash flow issue is because you're overpaying on interest on your projects because your projects aren't producing enough profits to pay off the debt that you borrowed, because all you're doing is evaluating the deal itself. You're not seeing how the deal's proceeds affects the company's operation. Because you're not doing that, you have no idea really what's happening with cash flow. And like you said, 1%. I tell everybody, we focus on 1% increments. So maybe it's for this quarter, or maybe for these 6 months, we're going to focus on 1%. If you're making $1 million in revenue, but 1% more in profit, that's $10K. That's $10,000. It's huge. And if you can do 1% a quarter, that's 4% a year, or 1% every 6 months, that's 2% a year. Give it 5 years. By the way, We're not saying that you're only going to be making $1 million. We're saying we're improving the efficiency by
Mm,
1%. Because you might grow from $1 to $5 million over the next 5 years.
wow.
Right. So that's what it's all about.
And what you had just framed for us is the one who says, well, I got to fire somebody or I got to put more
Right.
money into marketing. We were already talking about calculated risk. That's no longer calculated risk. That's
Exactly.
ignorance. It's
Yes.
dumb risk that is going. Now we're digging a hole because calculated risk says, I have this much. And if I lost maybe half of it, dude, we're still good. We're
Yep.
still golden. We can split test. We can try this thing. We could try this thing, whichever one works. But if you miss on the first one and you're already running out of the red, you might have to exit the business. You might have to fire somebody. You might have to do
Yep.
a number of things that aren't going to improve the overall quality and success of your business, all because of this one simple thing. You didn't hire a fractional CFO for your business.
Yeah. It's a lot, man. And I thoroughly enjoy it. And for anybody who's listening, fractional CFO is a term that, I mean, it's something that's been going on for a long time. Just people haven't been aware of it because maybe
Yeah.
they just weren't at that stage in their life. And I highly recommend, if you first just bookkeeping, get good quality bookkeeper, a bookkeeper who understands your industry and understands accounting, not just data entry. And then when the time is, find you a fractional CFO to help you out. And again, you want a fractional CFO in your industry with a proven track record of success and understand what they're going to be providing for you. It is it do they have an accounting background of some sort? Do they have a business background? Is it more of a coaching relationship or more of a technical application? And there's no wrong answer, but just understand what you're getting with it and find one that can help you get to wherever it is that you're trying to go.
And so one of my final questions for you is numbers don't lie. So
Right.
what makes this so challenging for people? Why is it that most businesses struggle in this area, whether it's finding the right bookkeeper or bringing someone on who you think is the right bookkeeper, but they're not? What makes this so challenging for people to get right?
I think the most challenging thing about trying to get your finances or anybody to get their business finances is the lack of time and attention that the business owner puts in to understand what the problem is anyway.
Mm,
When it comes to finances, most of the time the business owners say, hey, fix it, please. Here, you fix it. CPA, hey, bookkeeper, just get it right. But yet they don't even know what right looks like.
yeah.
I think that's the biggest mistake. So as business owners, you have to go out and you have to educate yourself on, first off, what are the financial statements I need? What are them? You need the income statement or the profit and loss. You need the balance sheet and you need the cash flow statement. When you go to bookkeepers, typically bookkeepers will give you an income statement and a balance sheet. Many people don't talk about that was my middle finger, but many people don't talk about the cash flow statement because many people don't know how to analyze a cash flow statement.
Mm,
As a business owner, you need to learn how to analyze all three of those statements in order for you to really understand the health of your business. Now, here's the thing. Once you understand how to analyze it, now hire a bookkeeper. Because a bookkeeper, when they're putting it together, you're reading it, you're like, this doesn't look right. Bookkeeper, why is that? Why is
right,
it saying this?
right.
Why? Explain to me why these numbers go here. They say this and that, and you're like, oh, that's not right. Because every time I open up the financial statements and we review it with the people, and I say, hey, this belongs here, every time, 100% without fail, they're like, there's going to be a situation where they look at it and say, that doesn't belong there. So you know it doesn't belong there, but it's here because you didn't put
Wow.
the time and energy and attention
Wow.
to it.
And we rely so much on the professionals to do the
For
thing that
sure.
they're supposed to do. I closed on a 6 unit building, and thank God that I got my real estate license and I worked as an agent for a while because I know how to read a settlement statement now. I understand debits and credits, who gets what and
Right.
why. And on there, they had debited to the seller all of the remaining months or the remaining days of rent. It was going back to him instead of going to me. It saved me $4,000. So instead of losing, it went to the other side, and that's a big deal. But
Mhm.
had I relied on the real estate agent to look it over with a fine tooth comb and say, no, 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 that's not it. To do her job, I
Yep.
had to look and say, no, that's not right. I need you to go fix that. Oops, my bad. Sorry. Because
Yep.
at the end of the day, it's not their business. They think if it's not caught, they're
Exactly.
going to get paid anyway, but it's our business. So
It's
we have to
exactly
take
right.
some accountability for it.
100%. 100%. And you'll find that those who take 100% responsibility and accountability for those business, they might seem a little anal retentive in the beginning, but they're the ones saying, hey, look, no, this isn't right. Ultimately, those are the ones that are most profitable because they
Mm,
know what is happening. When you think about what CEOs do, or just say leadership, period. Obviously, there's different layers of leadership, but what's happening is they're leading a team of individuals that are going out and putting all these things together and then reporting back to them saying, hey, it's complete. Hey, this is what it is, or whatever it is. But good leaders, even in the military, they know how to basically read the reports that they're receiving,
hmm
take out the important factors, address if there's a problem, fix the problem before they go to their next higher up. As a
Right.
business owner, you are the board of directors, you are the CEO. So sometimes it's hard because you're only answering to yourself. But if you relax your standards there and you don't know what's happening in your company, there's nobody to blame. So
And all that to say, for the folks that are listening, that doesn't mean now you got to go to accounting school. That
no, no,
means,
no,
hey,
no.
I need to hire somebody who's going to teach me. If you're already at the place where you're taking calculated risk, the best investment that you can make is your own skill. So I know that this person's known, they're renowned, they're already an expert in the thing that I need to know. So let me hire them on as a consultant for a short period of time,
Yep.
gain what I can from them, and then I will be able to go and execute effectively when I bring that person on. I know how to read it. I know what it should look like. Hey, let me guide you in the right way, not you guide me, because I'm the leader and I need to take that, what you said, 100% responsibility.
Extreme ownership, baby.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
dude, this has been awesome conversation. Dude, it's always good talking with you,
It's
brother.
always good chatting
Like,
with you, man. For
dude,
sure.
I love how excited you get about what you got going on. Obviously, you can tell that I get excited from your excitement. So, dude, tell us how we can find out more about the fractional CFO from you specifically. Where can people go to find out more about that from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys can go to www.g2businesssolutions.com. The website's up and functioning, so you guys can see that there. You can get more information. You guys can reach out to us, schedule a consultation. If you guys just want to check out some of the content on YouTube, you guys can go to Michael S. Glaspie, the Real Estate CFO on YouTube. And I have quite a few
Mm,
videos there that you guys can just go in and dive in to start understanding how to read those financial statements and a little bit more of the managerial accounting side of the house.
bang. Okay. So one more time, that was www.g2businesssolutions.com. That's a
Correct.
website. Go there,
Yep.
find it, because I'm telling you, you need it. I need it. I'm serious. And then on YouTube, go to the real estate CFO and man, start that YouTube university, get educated, learn the things so you can have that 1% increase every month, every quarter. Because, and I wanted to add this in here because I just read this in Proverbs. And I believe that if you read Proverbs every day, you will be wiser than all your peers. If you read it for years, you'll be richer than all your peers. But Proverbs chapter 13, verse 11 says, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Mike Glaspie. Go check him out on YouTube. Go check him out on social media and be sure to visit his website. And dude, I can't wait to have you on another time. This is awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Anytime to chat with you is always a good time. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, brother. Bang.